Alexander Pushkin, George Washington, Mozart, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Mikhail Kutuzov and Simon Bolivar. What unites these people from different eras, countries and cultures? Of course, they were all Freemasons, members of perhaps the most mysterious secret society in history. Well, or societies with secret ones, as the Masons themselves like to call themselves. The question of who the Freemasons are, where they came from and why they are needed is devoted to whole collections of books and many hours of documentaries. But, as in the case of the Illuminati, in fact everything is much simpler and fits perfectly in 10 minutes. Of course, we are not talking about all the secrets and conspiracy theories, but in short, we will try to convey the essence of the Masons to you in the next few minutes. Is it true that they rule the world? Why almost every influential person is a Mason? And how come there are 6 million of them on the planet right now? All answers in the next couple of minutes. And our story will begin with the fact that no one, including the Masons themselves, really knows where exactly the movement began. Some sources draw its roots to Ashkodum, others are a little more modest and call the hard workers who built the Temple of Solomon as the ancestors. Well, the guys who have plunged headlong into historical documents that inspire confidence say the following: Masons are followers of construction artels that erected Gothic and other buildings of medieval Europe. The first documentary record of the existence of the organization of builders refers to the 643rd year. It was in Germany, but similar parties appeared all over the continent. Why? Yes, because monumental structures were built not just for years, but for decades and sometimes even centuries. Put yourself in the place of such a hard worker. The construction began long before you, and most likely, even after working on it all your working life, you will not see the end result. What thoughts will arise in your head? Of course, both philosophical and related to what kind of world this is and how we have come to this. We still fall into such reflections from the imperfection of the world. And imagine what happened to the guys then. Of course, looking at the monumental structures and building them over the years, they became more than just friends to each other. And quite logically, they huddled together, held meetings, and also discussed burning topics together. And of course, in order to protect the sincerity of conversations, over time, the builders came up with criteria for getting into a mini-union, as well as various rules for choosing meeting rooms and other things. There was no question of any mysticism then. The associations were more like artels and all the restrictions rested on the fact that they had adequate people with whom there was something to talk about and who would not betray fellow hard workers in trouble. Over time, these unions evolved, the rules improved, philosophy issues reached a new level, and businessmen, writers, philosophers and other guys ran to the builders to chat about this and that. As a result, the meetings of Masons turned into something like an interest club, which, respecting its roots, shifted the architectural idea to everything that it saw around. They stopped building huge cathedrals, but the Masons took the imprint of their power to themselves, discussing the universe, the world and other trifles as architecture. In the lodges there have always been and are compasses and a square. The compass serves as a reminder to limit your desires and restrain your passions within the boundaries, and on the square it calls for measuring all their actions so that they carry virtue. Let the French, Germans and even Russian Freemasons argue with this, but still, England should most likely be considered a kind of core of the organization. At least because all the designations came from her language. A Mason, if anyone does not know, translates as a mason, and a lodge is a gatehouse where Masons kept their tools. Well, in general, the organization is most often called the Union of Freemasons. Of course, also with an English translation. The British at one time made muddy papers allegedly from King Ethelstan, who again allegedly granted a charter to the Mason of York. It was in the 926th year and many consider this date to be the starting point for the registration of Freemasonry as a movement. The authenticity of the Jihadi is still disputed, but it is known for sure that at least in the 15th century Masons were already actively holding meetings and they were already enlightened in nature, loosely connected directly with the topic of construction. But the real BOM came a little later, just with those rich people and politicians we mentioned. At the end of the 17th century, the legendary king of the Netherlands William III officially joined the Masonic Lodge. He glorified the profession of Masons, and brought the final formation of goals to Freemasonry. And the lodges were meant as promoting the cause of universal love, enlightenment, charity and discussion of monumental issues. Actually, nothing has changed since then. As the Masons themselves say in an interview, the lodge is at the same time a men's club, an educational institution where you can discuss interesting issues with intelligent people and a circle of interests. Roughly speaking, a closed party for those who are trying to get to know the universe and the plans of its architect. A little later, in 1717, the first Grand Lodge was founded in London. She blessed smaller lodges, sanctioned the opening of new ones, and contacted other great ones who later appeared. Now a simple desire was not enough for admission and participation in conversations. Masons have developed a whole mechanism of initiation and internal hierarchy. The following was required from a person wishing to become a Mason. Firstly, to be a man, because only they were considered free at that time. Secondly, to believe in God, and contrary to prejudice, no matter which one. It is enough for Masons to know that you believe in a higher personality, a kind of architect. And his specific name is already your personal story. Actually, that's why Freemasonry was actively spreading in both Arab and other countries. With all this in mind, the candidate should have made acquaintance with the Masons, because the application was made only on recommendations. Then the guys from the lodge held a secret ballot, and if the candidate satisfied everyone, the initiation process began. At first, a person was taken to a completely dark room with the most depressive atmosphere, suggestive of the impermanence of being. There he wrote a paper with thoughts, vows and commitment to God. Then the candidate was bared his pant leg to show freedom. The same thing was done with half of the breast to prove that this is a man and his heart is open. Well, in addition, they closed their eyes and led them to the temple, where the abbot pronounced the main postulates. In the end, the candidate swore on the Bible, the Quran or a suitable holy book, and became the lowest member of the Masonic chain. Their structure varies from country and time, but in general, initially there were 2 degrees, an apprentice and an apprentice. Later, a master mason was added to them, and for one of the degrees that almost every lodge thinks of itself. The hierarchy of Freemasons is chaotic. In fact, each of the lies can come up with the position she needs specifically. And at the same time, a set of greeting gestures and all sorts of code differences with which Masons see each other. There is no single scheme here and never has been. Yes, Masons have their own ciphers, but they change them like gloves, because of course, secrets are periodically leaked. We will not dwell on this in detail. Let's talk better about why the idea of Freemasons took off so much and how it happened that 13 of the people who signed the first US Constitution were Freemasons. And in fact, there are no secrets here. Firstly, the 17th and 19th centuries were a real boom of secret societies. They existed literally everywhere, and any enlightened person wanted to communicate with the same. Masonic lodges were a great place for this, and all conspiracy theories about the management of the world are broken about one moment, which the TV channels known to us do not like to mention. At all meetings of Freemasons, 3 topics are prohibited: women, politics and religion. From the very beginning of the organization of the movement, it is impossible to raise such issues at meetings. This is a real taboo that exists to this day. And those who don't believe in him can look at the Illuminati and other secret societies that really got into politics. Spoiler, none of them has survived to the present. And the Freemasons lived quite well, just because the 3 topics that cause the most heated debates are tightly prohibited for discussion. You can chat about culture, philosophy, self-development and high matters, but to get involved with discussions in wars, borders, in Masonic lodges, a direct way out. And the fact that a huge number of great people were Freemasons is a banal mistake, and causes and effects are mixed up in places. Washington, Kutuzov and other guys played an important role in the history of mankind, not because they were Freemasons, but because they were outstanding personalities. And outstanding personalities in the past were drawn to the same outstanding and wanted to discuss serious high topics. That's why the guys joined Freemasonry. Conspiracy theories are the same as saying that winning a Nobel Prize increases IQ. Although in fact, people deserve a prize just because they already have high intelligence. We hope you caught the analogy. Although, of course, the familiarity that the Masons acquired in the lodges often played into their hands. But this is again the replacement of cause-effect in places. We don't blame scientists who get to know each other at scientific conferences. Masons and their lodges are extremely heterogeneous and sometimes radically different from each other organizations. Some are accepted by a woman, some are not. Some have the approval of the great lies, and some are not very. In view of the antiquity of the organization and its prevalence around the world, a huge amount of details about Masons varies from era to era and from country to country. And the first thing to remember is that there is not and never has been a single textbook, instructions and any rules of the Masons. Almost every lodge is self-governing and can invent its own rituals, degrees and tasks. and at the same time, adhere to the version of the history of the origin and goals of the Freemasons that is convenient for them specifically. The positioning of the Masons as a single organization with a rigid hierarchy and unified management is completely wrong. After all, there has never been a year in history when humanity has done without wars, often for the stupidest of reasons. And you seriously say that 6 million living Freemasons have no disagreements? Of course they do, but the closed club works in such a way as to smooth them out and not to meddle in forbidden topics. Of course, the Masons also have secrets, because powerful people enter there. But by exactly the same analogy, we can say that the community of Dota players also has secrets. After all, even presidents play it too. In general, the history of the Masons is an interesting and very fascinating thing. But the way the world works, people love to invent reptilians and put labels on everything, but in fact it is often much easier.
As always, thank you for joining me on this incredible adventure. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And remember, my friends, keep seeking, keep exploring, and never stop unraveling the mysteries that surround us. Until next time, stay curious.